Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Business Immigration Benchmark. I'm your host, Laura Blaneres. Today, we've got a quick, easy episode chatting about summer travel, some housekeeping for messaging to send out, if you haven't already, to your foreign national population. We'll follow through some best practices. I'll share a quick story. We'll make sure you message to your foreign nationals to have a valid passport. Seems obvious, yet gets missed every year. So with that, we'll jump right in. So some summer housekeeping. Well, if you haven't sent out a message to your foreign national population already about summer travel, as the summer season is upon us, I know my son is getting out of school next week, and your foreign nationals are booking travel, might have already had travel booked or asking questions. This conversation is meant to direct the communications for the housekeeping, make sure you're introducing best practices to the messaging for summer travel. And this one seems obvious, but you'd be surprised. In the last 2 months, I've had a few foreign national clients who didn't realize that they need to maintain a valid passport while being in the U.S. So while this is on the foreign national employee to maintain their valid visa as a compliance requirement for being in the U.S. as a foreign national, helpful reminder every year to send out to foreign national employees who may just not be looking at the dates on their passport, and it can jumble and cause some challenges for future international travel, not to mention, like I said, a compliance requirement. So yeah, friendly reminder to send out a yearly communication to your foreign national employees about maintaining a valid passport, that of course being a key document for travel. The thing that you want to make sure you're putting into this seasonal travel communication is communicating the requirements and expectations you have for the foreign nationals when they're going through international travel this summer. So, work with the immigration vendor to partner on the communication. Maybe that's something the immigration vendor should be sending, or maybe it's something your team should be sending, or a joint email or correspondence, or a joint communication rather, for your foreign national population. And in that communication, you'll want to make sure to message that the foreign national employees should drop a note or be checking in with the Immigration Council, because there are various situations where the foreign national employee should not be internationally traveling or has some restrictions about timeline for international travel. For example, a common one is F1 students wanting to travel during the summer, and they may also be filing H-1B petitions. Now, depending on how the H-1B petition is filed, it could allow travel, or it may just have some timeline specifications for travel. But either way, those cases or those folks should be checking in with the Immigration Council to make sure they're aligned with the team that's filing their H-1B, and that they know when the foreign national is going to be coming and going in and out of the country, to make sure the H-1B strategy aligns. Another example of folks that have complicated international travel restrictions are folks that will be or have applied for adjustment of status. Sometimes those folks have travel restrictions for certain time periods. They may require having advance parole issued before international travel. So best practice here is in the summer travel communication to make sure those employees are notified to check in with Immigration Council to ensure international travel aligns with their immigration strategy. The next thing to think about is if you have a population that you're managing that are on expat assignments. Some of those expat assignments may include, I've worked with clients in the past, where expat assignments include like a yearly trip home to home country. And if that is part of your program where you have a expat assignment, and the benefit includes a yearly trip home, and that expat foreign national wants to take it for summer, you want to make sure that it also is aligning with any extension or visa stamping requirements for that foreign national, so that the company isn't paying for multiple trips for the foreign national and their family to return abroad to complete visa stamping or L1 blanket extension filings with the consulate. So in the communication, if there is an expat population, making sure to target the communication to make sure those trips are efficient and in line with the expat assignments. That's kind of a specific example. That's not a common program. And again, targeted towards expat assignment employees. The other thing that comes up frequently is you want to be messaging your expectations, the global mobility, the HR team's expectations for when foreign nationals may be requesting employment verification letters. It's a common request for documentation for travel and for visa stampings. So make sure you're messaging how long it will take your team to complete the employment verification letter. So if that's 2 business days, 3 business days, making sure you let them know that this is how long the process takes for your turnaround time, so that when they are requesting, they know not to do it the day before or, the morning before their appointment, that they have an understanding of how long it takes for your team or you to issue that employment verification letter before they make that trip abroad. I think another good thing to include in this messaging is a link or an attachment to a checklist for visa stamping. Again, many folks, especially veteran H-1B workers, will have done H-1B visa stamping frequently. They might even be eligible for Dropbox. So they're very familiar with the process, but it's helpful to have an FAQ or some sort of checklist so they can make sure that they're prepared for that appointment. Partner with your immigration counsel to make sure that they can provide you with that checklist and use their checklist for this messaging. The other point is to message, if you have a policy, about travel abroad and work abroad. So I know some companies, don't allow foreign nationals or any employees to bring laptops, cell phones outside the US for their policies. So making sure that messaging is also part of your note, whether that's a link to the employee handbook or wherever that information lies, and to make sure that they're messaging to their manager if they're taking the PTO for the visa stamping trip or not. Which really brings me to my next point. I think, especially for foreign nationals who are going on visa stamping, to make sure they have messaged their time out with their manager. Again, thinking about a notification process for foreign national employees traveling overseas. So obviously, we want the foreign national employees checking in with counsel, checking in with the HR global mobility lead, and then also notifying their manager. But making sure maybe there's a process within your organization for all of those things, especially the manager, and especially if the company doesn't allow work internationally. I have a case recently where the foreign national is going back home to China and is doing so rather urgently for a sick family member and does not have a valid visa stamp. So is going to also need to do visa stamping. The planned trip is 2 weeks. And because they're a veteran H-1B holder, they know to schedule the appointment like the first full day that they're in China. And then they expect to have the visa stamp issued within that 2-week period to return home with their passport. Their company does not allow remote work outside the US, and the H-1B worker has to leave their company laptop in the US. And so we had a conversation with HR on the line, and I sent a follow-up note after the conversation to prompt the conversation with the manager, because we are seeing a higher incidence of administrative processing out of China. And so we want to make sure that manager is aware that there could be some delay for that H-1B worker to return to the US and start work. So we had the HR work through and discuss the PTO, leave of absence policy, and then also, again, making sure that the manager is just aware that this is a possibility. It's hard to discuss the probability or assess, how likely it is to happen, but we want to make sure the manager and HR and everybody's aware that this could happen and that the foreign national has the expectation to communicate with all stakeholders within the organization and our team so that we can support if there are any opportunities for support should anything go sideways with the visa appointment. So again, just a bite-sized episode here for just some housekeeping with summer travel as it's upon us. And we're just looking to make sure, our teams here have effective communication strategies and are hitting all the high points for checklists, best practices for their foreign national employee teams.